Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. What a day of action to close out the weekend. Some serious good, bad and ugly on display today. Some terrible showings, some rather good showings, some lack of ice from start to finish. We're about to enter your thoughts and all this stuff in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. There is no time to waste than to hop into this Seattle Surge series because damn, this was not pretty in the respawns. I said on the Doping episode the other day that I could see the Seattle Surge team being stuck on 60 CDL points for quite some time to come. And on this evidence, it's not going to be changing anytime soon because they came out of the gate and got slammed here by Ravens in all of the respawns. To be fair, we didn't see something too dissimilar to this at the major, but on that occasion, Illy went absolutely immense, won them the Game 4 invasion hardpoint single-handedly, and then Surge closed out the search and destroys. Funny really that Clay was saying during this one that actually they've been working, Ravens, pretty hard on their search and destroy gameplay. We didn't see much evidence to that today, but their respawn is, look, I think they played well in the respawns today, Ravens. I think they deserve some credit, but what the hell is going on at Seattle Surge? This was so ugly. Sure, they go down 106-0 off the rip, and okay, sometimes happens on that P2 rotation. They do kind of bring it back in the hardpoint, but eventually they lose pretty comfortably, 250 to like 150. But, you know, I said earlier today when I predicted Ravens to win that I was a bit concerned, really, about the fact that Surge in the search and destroys should be a force. And to be fair to Arcetes, he's got a lot of criticism, and I think a lot of it is pretty valid to be fair. But he did show up today and had, I mean, one of his best series in a very long time, it felt like to me, but it obviously wasn't good enough and nowhere near good enough based on the way the series went. He did, however, completely dominate the terminal search and destroy. 14-3, this one wasn't even close. Arcetes shut the door, but I mean, I know that Shift mentioned this in comms as well. Why a Surge playing high-rise control? Surely they must be better at Karachi than this. Like, I mean, come on. I can't believe my eyes, to be honest. But yeah, again, it was the first rounds, and Ravens just waltzed into the points and captured it, just like what happened with Surge the other day against the Subliners, and just close out a pretty easy 3-0. Even Ravens. And we know how bad these guys are at control. We've seen it so often over the last several weeks. You know, and even to be fair, the final rounds that Ravens won, they made it quite hard on themselves, to be honest. Like, the way they played it, sure, eventually the lives went in their favour, but they honestly gave Surge a chance to win that one. So I'm still not convinced by Ravens' control at all, but it's just, you know, I genuinely think myself and three random boys in ranked play might be able to do Seattle a number here on high-rise control based on what I've seen over the last couple of days. It's ridiculous. And Hook, to be fair, he went on a bit of a spree at one point, but man, I don't know what to even say about Surge anymore because they're so uncoordinated, it's almost absurd. And Hook is obviously a talented player, but man, watching him play sometimes, like, I like Afro, and I've talked about that before, and I've talked about how it frustrates me when he doesn't hold a pre-aim or makes a poor decision or whatever, because you know the talent is there. But Hook has been doing this stuff for years, and that's why Rambo dropped him, or Krim dropped him, whatever it was, from that Dallas Empire team back in Cold War, because Hook was just making brain-dead plays again and again, and the amount of times that you see it when Hook just runs into a pre-aim, and I think I'd want to give Hook a bit of slack just because he is basically their only sub, and aBeZy looks way off the pace, let's be honest here. aBeZy is good on an AR, and he's pretty bad on a sub, and that's what we saw here going into the Rio hardpoint. But this was the most controversial moment of the series. Again, by the way, Ravens should have probably won this map 250-59. It was looking that way, but to be fair to Surge, somehow they put together a bit of a spree at the end. They still, even during that spree, I don't think were playing good COD, but they got some kills. Eventually it was like 250-130, but it was still a domination really from the Ravens here. And this is aBeZy. To be fair to aBeZy, he got stunned, he laid down in this spot, but I don't think he was stunned anymore, and if he really wanted to, he could have stood up and taken this chal normally, or even just crouched and taken this chal, but no, he decides to lay down and, well, go prone. This is a very blatant stair glitch, right? This is exactly every single sentiment of what we think about as a stair glitch. This is what he's using right here, and he kills Felony, and Fellow can barely see him, certainly can't really shoot him and get any damage off. Now, there's some debate on whether stair glitching is actually GA'd or not. The belief is that there's certain spots that have been said, okay, that's a ban. There's other spots that are maybe haven't been clarified. But the theory goes that stair glitching is gentleman's agreemented, and if you break it, there should be some sort of punishment. So I know that aBeZy wasn't really on the team when Surge were breaking GAs day in, day out, as they were previously. And I do also find it hilarious how pretty much during the stint where Surge were breaking every GA under the sun, aBeZy was on the single tap, apparently, maybe not though. We had Hook and Nasties use a couple of smoke grenades. We had Hook snaking. Basically, the entire team over there has been involved in some sort of GA breaking at some point. And now aBeZy's getting in on the act as well. He obviously wanted to join Surge and crack right on. So I don't know what the thought process was here, whether he thought, you know what, we're already terrible and we're already blacklisted from scrims for weeks, so who cares? What are they going to do to us any more than already? But, you know, the general feeling was after they close out this map, you know, as Fellow says, why am I getting stay glitch of 100? All good, they won the series. And I think Fellow actually went on to quote tweet this one as well, because, you know, this was actually the video of it, where it's quite clear that as Fellow says, I couldn't see this guy, like, what am I meant to do? And obviously the reaction immediately was red card, red card, red card. At the end of the day, it doesn't massively matter, but I don't know how you fix this Surge team. It's just tragic, really, that Illy is gone, because they clearly need Illy. I don't think anyone's denying that. He was their best player. aBeZy doesn't look up to speed, really. aBeZy, by the way, got giga slammed on that Rio hard points because he had to use a sub, which is... like, again, I don't know what they were thinking with that team composition at the start of the season, but they, thankfully for Surge, like, they formed that team. I said it was terrible. Most people said it was terrible, but the feeling was that, well, if they get some things in their favor, such as if Illy becomes, you know, a great player again and turns up at the start of the season, they can be a serious threat, potentially. Like, okay, they needed other things to go their way as well, such as the meta to help them, such as other players to turn it around and aBeZy to be really good, but, you know, Illy delivered, right? He delivered on that, and therefore they looked okay. You lose Illy, you've lost basically everything that makes that team anywhere near interesting, to be honest. So yeah, fair play to the Ravens. They close out a 3-1. Still, I've got my concerns about their control gameplay, but I think it was impressive what they did here in the respawns. But like, Surge looked so lost, just so uncoordinated, and so like they just given up. I mean, that was the sense that I got, especially when you win the search and destroy in the way they did. You think, oh yeah, come on boys, you know, let's do this. They go into the control high rise and get slammed again, and then they just get completely obliterated. No trades, nothing like that, just running in one by one and dying. I can't imagine what the comms sounded like. It must just be a nightmare internally of that team. What do you even do? I mean, they've got rid of Illy. They won't say why. They won't even say that they did, to be honest. They just pretended that never happened. aBeZy's in. It's not really working so far. The numbers replicate that as well. And Nasties is like, yep, GG's lost 1-3. And to be fair, he had a good series individually. But yeah, obviously wasn't enough here, right? aBeZy in the negative. aBeZy with a 0.68. I think aBeZy was averaging a 0.69 going into this series, something like that. So he's keeping it up down there. Who got a 0.7? Lowest kills in the lobby as well. And just the green carpet on the other side. And look, I've criticized, especially online, the Clay Fellow AR partnership. But you know, if you're getting slammed by a Clay Fellow AR partnership online, like, I don't know what to say. It's probably over for you. So I'm sure we're going to have conversations about Surge in the coming days as to exactly where they go from here, because it's not a good start. And, you know, the decline seems inevitable because Ravens are one of the bottom teams in the league as well. You can't be getting effectively slammed by them, let's be honest, apart from that search and destroy. So we go into the Boston versus Rokkr series, though. And this one, I really couldn't believe my eyes in some parts as to what I was seeing when this got to the game 5. I thought this could be an interesting series. Like, Boston are just the most inconsistent team. I criticized them the other day because I don't personally still think the slasher Priestahh thing is really going to work. I still feel confident they can get better over time. It wasn't that long ago they slammed Toronto 3-0, so okay, that was with Cap still, but they've still got the potential there. And as Slasher said in the post-game interview, Snoopy is one of the most talented players in the league as far as he's concerned. And there's a reason why Boston have chosen to build around him as the next up man for their franchise in effect. So Slasher and Snoopy seem to have a good relationship. They seem to understand and recognize each other's, you know, what they bring to the team, shall we say. Asim was good today as well. But, you know, the search and destroy was... I don't understand Rokkr, man, because they go down 2-0 in the search and destroy game 2. They then win 6 straight, icy as hell, right? So, you know, Rokkr bouncing back, go down 1-0, go down 2-0, and then here we go, 6 straight on the invasion, search and destroy, closing out the game 2, win the control, back in the game, close out the series easily. But Rokkr do not make anything for themselves easy at the present time. Slasher also played really well today as well, and I guess historically he does have a pretty damn good record against accuracy. They're good friends, of course, but, you know, whenever they play, Slasher is definitely come into play. I will say as well, the control Rokkr probably, I think against a better team, they lose this situation here. Asim had some decisions to make. He was on a 4 spree, and Rokkr made some interesting calls at this very moment. They either could have chosen to try and really hunt Asim, and Asim could have forced their hand on that. But actually, because he was alive in the back here, they just decided, you know what, we're just going to spawn kill Boston again and again and again, and let Asim live back there. And Asim had to make the decision, really, whether he was going to go to the point and start capturing it, or whether he was just going to stay alive and play for kills. To be honest, I think he makes the wrong call. He tries to play for kills, Lins cleans him up, and then they lose the round. If he pushes to the hill here, starts to get time, it forces the Rokkr arrows to focus on him, which at least allows his teammates out of the trap, because you know, I think they had such a great chance, right? 17 to 11. It was a really good opportunity here for Boston to close out this control. They didn't do so. And Awakening, to be fair, had a really good map 3 control. But again, the map 4, like, he kind of went missing a bit. And to be fair, again, it's sub-base. The spawns are really questionable. We see it on the invasion as well. But, I mean, fair play. This is another banger sub-base, and despite how questionable the map might be, it is fun to watch. You can't deny that, because these games go down to the wire more often than not, it seems right now. Asim and Slasher went big time as well here on this game 4. Eventually, they close it out. They did get blessed pretty hard by this spawn as well. That Rokkr totally didn't read. They still kind of made it close, to be fair, Rokkr, but in the end, it went the way of the Boston Breach. Awakening, as I say, with a pretty tough game 4 to take it to a game 5. But still, you gotta think that Rokkr against Boston, one of the, if not the weakest search teams in the entire league, surely Rokkr can finally take a game 5. They bottled the series bad against OpTic the other day. They went game 5 with Ultra and got slammed 6-0. And it's then the same story again. Boston, to be fair to them, were well prepared for this one. They knew what Rokkr were going to try and do. They know what accuracy does on this map, and he got really exposed. I think he got 1 kill, really, in this entire map. But what do we say about Minnesota Rokkr, right? They go game 5 against I mean, look, Boston are such a weird team. They've got the talent, but I still thought Rokkr should be favourites here. And there is just 0 game 5 ice from this team as it stands. Like, there's just no dog in this team right now. They showed it, well, they showed they've got no dog against OpTic. They showed it against Toronto, and they even showed it against Boston, right? So, you know, from what could have been a very good start to this split, Rokkr are now 0-3 and on the verge of looking like something of a decline. Definitely a good series here individually out of Slasher and Snoopy, especially. Priestahh also turned up big time as well, so I wanted to give him some credit because he had the most damage in the lobby today. So big bounce back from him after a shocking series really the other day up against the Subliners. The inconsistency remains for Boston, but the consistent meltdowns remain for the Minnesota Choker. And what an absolute banger series to close out the weekend, right? A phenomenal weekend of games, you gotta say, from start to finish. In this one, FaZe versus Subliners, I was hoping it would go down to the wire. I don't know what I said in this morning's video, but in the end of the Breaking Point predictions, I went for a Subliners victory. I felt like they could do it in 5, and that's what happens. But man, this was a roller coaster, and it's just great to see these top 4 teams do battle in this way. We know that Subliners, up to this point in the season, really up until the last couple of weeks, have looked questionable, and there's no doubt about it that they really came to play today, because game 1, FaZe actually looked really good. FaZe are always so hard to beat, but I felt like it was somewhat inevitable that FaZe's online dominance had to come to an end. They're usually not that crazy good online. FaZe are still FaZe, right? There's no doubt. But, you know, the last couple of seasons, they've done these 3-2 online splits every so often, usually actually very often indeed. Whereas this season, they pretty much dominated since the online stuff really started at the beginning of the season. So I thought that eventually someone's going to get the better of them. Didn't happen in the game 1, though. Drazah in the listening was like, yeah, these kids are horrible. But they showed that they're not so horrible in the Search and Destroy, because they got 6-0 slammed here on the high-rise Search and Destroy. aBeZy even doing his best Clayster impression and falling straight off the map. We know that New York are good at Surge, but this was really impressive, right? To 6-0 a team like FaZe, and FaZe are good at this map. We've seen them play against OpTic before and done well, for example, so Subliners just completely cooked them today, and the control was also really interesting. Kismet, by the way, didn't even die. What a player Kiz was today, by the way. MVP of this series, in my opinion. But FaZe did close out the control. This was an aBeZy and Simp masterclass. We know that Simp, especially back in Cold War, was unreal at control, and we saw evidence of that here today. Subliners made it competitive, but when aBeZy and Simp are playing like that, there's not all that much you can do. And actually, Simp was given some extra love here at the end of this game as well. So there's things pretty heated, right, between these two teams in some respects, especially the fact that at the end of last season, Subliners constantly constantly had FaZe's number, and of course they are very similar teams. So FaZe got 2-1 of the series, but then we had an absolute banger map of Hardpoint. It was on the Skid Row, of course, and there was one moment here where Kismet team-naded HyDra and killed himself. They gave New York Subliners doubts, let's say, that they'd win the game, but they still closed it out in the end. And then we went to a game 5, a map where the New York Subliners were feeling very confident after their search and destroy stuff, and they come out on top of this game 5. As I say, Kismet went huge here. Skyz was going wild after this Sib 3-piece that he picked up as well, had to put them up 5-2. It then got a bit sketchy, to be fair, but, you know, FaZe made some mistakes. aBeZy over Channing getting caught out. You don't usually see FaZe seem a little bit, you know, not shell-shocked, I wouldn't say, because they're playing the world champions, as it were, but, you know, they were making more errors than you usually expect. Subliners capitalized on it, and eventually they take the map in a 6-4 fashion and close out the series. So an absolutely wild series, really, especially the fact that they won, you know, 2 search and destroys and a respawn here, and most of the numbers in the respawn game modes weren't particularly pretty for the Subliners, but their search and destroy was where the difference here was made. We know that S&D was championships. Good chance, really, based on this series, that Subliners might be officially back. I mean, look, it's kind of funny that FaZe are 1-1 only this stage so far, and Subliners have already played 4 games. They're now 4-0. But I think a really great result here for the league as well, because at the start of the season, the theory was, well, you know, OpTic don't seem quite at the level of Toronto, and FaZe aren't quite at the level of, you know, Toronto either, right? So it seemed like there was quite a clear, right, FaZe and Toronto, and then OpTic, and then Subliners got top 12. But now, on what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, really leading into this series, it really feels like we have a real top 4 back in the league again, and we're going to have proper battles, especially when it comes down to the next major. So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.